Alright, so it's been a couple months since I made that video talking about Francis Ford Coppola's feature film debut, Dementia 13, a while ago. And I wanted to make this summer, most kind of looking back at some of Coppola's films. But now I'm kind of running out of time because I am not even a month away from Megalopolis coming out. And I want to talk about more of his movies, but today I'm gonna finally talk about two Coppola movies that I kind of wanted to always watch and discuss for a while now, and that is both S.E. Hinton adaptations that he made in 1983. That is The Outsiders and Rumblefish. Let's get into this. So, The Outsiders. Even if you have not seen this movie, you are definitely aware that it is based off of a very popular book from the 60s, and it is kind of big, I think, within schools. A lot of kids in schools definitely like to read this book. Because I definitely remember 8th grade. We didn't read it all together as a class. We were given the choice of The Outsiders and another book called Monster to make an essay on it, read and make an essay about it. And I choose Monster just because it had a very script, script dialogue, like a film or a play to it, which has made it more easier kind of for me to read it. So I picked that over The Outsiders, and to be honest, looking back, I still don't care about my choice. I kind of enjoyed reading Monster, but that also has a movie on Netflix with Jeffrey Wright, and I haven't seen it at all. So The Outsiders, the book, I never finished reading that book. I've read a little bit of it, and of course I watched a little bit of the movie, and I had no idea that it was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and it starred all of these big name actors in it, which they started off, which we'll get into later. Overall, Outsiders is really loved by a lot of people. The movie obviously was a big hit. We'll talk about that later. And also, if you didn't know, on Broadway there was an Outsiders musical. And I just want to state also there is an Outsiders play, just like a regular play that is just it's the story on stage. But now finally there's an actual musical version where there are people actually singing, and it won the Tony for Best Musical, and I was very shocked. I haven't seen it, and I don't care personally. I just don't want to. I don't like going to the city, so I'm sure it's good. It looks like the actors, they get wet on stage, so I guess that's kind of cool. But I just don't really care to go out of my way to go see this show. But overall, I just need to come out and say that Outsiders is a American classic to a lot of people, some people's favorite books, and the people who love the book, they love this movie by Francis Ford Coppola. So Coppola had no interest in doing this film about teen angst and such, but then all of a sudden, so there was a school librarian from this school in California. They wrote to him on behalf of her 7th and 8th grade students about adapting The Outsiders. So basically this class they really loved The Outsiders so much that they petitioned a letter for him to make the movie. It was approximately 15 pages of children's signatures were attached to the letter, written in different colors. Moved by the letter, Coppola read the book and was impressed by it. That is insane that this movie was made because of this school district. I have no idea how that just blows my mind that's how this movie kind of got made. And I'm going to mention later how I think Coppola directing this is kind of weird. But overall, the fact that a classroom made this happen is just oh my god. I'm trying to think of like any other movie that had like a weird like origin like that, where the reason why it got developed because something weird. I can't think of anything else like that. But overall, Coppola read the book and he really liked it. And the film would be written by Kathleen Roll, who would write the movie Joy of Sex with Ernie Hudson. Seriously, that's the only writer. Coppola didn't write this. Yeah, that's who wrote it. Alright, so let's get right into the cast, because there's a lot of actors who became really big from this. Well, alright, let's just talk with the first guy. C. Thomas Howell, who plays the main character, Ponyboy. C. Thomas Howell was kind of a upcoming star. You know, he did this. He did, Red Dawn, which had another actor from this movie. And then he made the choice to be in this movie called Soul Man, where he's in blackface. Not like he's not being a black person. He's playing a white guy being a black person, but still, it kind of put a sour taste in his career. And the only big movie to mention that he was in recent years was The Amazing Spider-Man as the crane operator. It's just kind of interesting, though, that out of all the actors, the main star didn't really go as far as the rest. Especially one actor who's not in it that much, but... Alright, I'm going to quickly go down the line. So, you have... So you also have Matt Dillon in the film, who would actually star in another S.E. Hinton film adaptation called Tex that came out the year before. So that's something interesting I kind of found as a, interesting piece of trivia. Who plays the character of Dallas, and I don't really like this character. Patrick Swayze, who would star again with C. Thomas Howell in Red Dawn. I haven't really seen that much of him. I haven't seen Dirty Dancing or Roadhouse. I've seen Point Break, and that is great, and it came out on my birthday. Ralph Macchio, this was the year before he did The Karate Kid as Johnny. He's good in this. The character's fine. Rob Lowe, as C. Thomas Howell's, Ponyboy's brother, and also Patrick Swayze's brother. So this was the early role for Rob Lowe. Emilio Estevez is also in it, who... 2 years later would star in another S.E. Hinton adaptation for That Was Then, This Is Now. And last but not least, you also have Tom Cruise. He's not really in it that much, but he's very fun. This is the same year he did Risky Business. And then other actors to kind of mention who are in the film. You got Diane Lane as like the sort of love interest. One of her earliest roles. She's pretty good in this. You got Tom Waits in a brief cameo. And then you got a young Sofia Coppola. Before she did Godfather Part 3, she was in this. Very minor role. We'll talk about her performance in the next one. And then S.E. Hinton has a quick cameo in it. Also, just to point out some other interesting casting possibilities, was Timothy Hutton, Sean Penn, Mickey Rourke, who would star in the next one, Anthony Michael Hall, who was doing Vacation at the time, Scott Baio, Bob Loblaw, and Dennis Quaid, who was doing Jaws 3D the same year. Also, I kind of saw that the auditioning, I think Ralph Macchio talked about how the auditioning for the movie was apparently very weird, and I think Tom Cruise, struck Rob Lowe. Something overall, a lot of weird stuff happened. Alright, so the film, which is not very unsurprising for a Coppola movie, was 2 hours and 13 minutes. And Warner Brothers, they didn't like it. They thought it was way too long. And Coppola had to cut it down to 91 minutes for the theatrical release. Because the movie is very short. It's only an hour and 31 minutes. And I know there is... And again, this is very unsurprising for Coppola. There is another cut of this movie. And I think that's the one that was playing at my school that one time. Because when I watched this movie for the first time in a while on this DVD... I realized something was weird about the opening, and because I clearly remember the film opening with like a big brawl between the greasers and the socias when I saw it at school. Then I see this and it's just like Pony Boy and Johnny Boy. They're just walking around town in Oklahoma with Dallas, and then they just go to the movie theater, and the rest is kind of how I just mostly remember it. Also, I think the music got rearranged in that cut because, like all Coppola movies, he had his father Carmine work on it, and it's pretty good. I don't know if it doesn't really fit all the time though. So it gets a little too overdramatic. But overall, so look, The Outsiders. I haven't really said the plot. The whole movie is basically just about the story. It's about lower class gang of boys and the upper class gang of rich boys. Just they kind of like brawl around, and but then there's also the whole point is like it's just Pony Boy and Johnny. They just run away and they kind of save kids. There's a lot that kind of goes on in the story. I'm not so big into it because I just don't know. I think some of the problems though with the film though is that it's PG, and it should have been a little more rated R, like the next one we're gonna talk about, and just have because it's a movie about like gangs and like and classes, but it's a movie about gangs, and I just don't think it's not really violent enough. I don't think there's enough of that. There's also this thing that Coppola was like trying to like pay homage to Gone with the Wind, which is kind of weird to do in a movie that's about gangs and not really like Civil War or romance. So you kind of get this movie that feels like a combination of Gone with the Wind and West Side Story. That's what it kind of just feels like. But it is definitely beautiful at times, but it doesn't fit. Some of it just does not feel like it fits for this movie. I think some of the acting in this is just terrible from, I think, everyone. I don't know. Just no one's really that great in this movie. Even Patrick Swayze. Everyone is just pretty weak in this movie. Just kind of sad to say, but yeah, I gotta admit though, like the acting's not the best in this. Coppola though, as a director, I think he is still the strongest aspect. I still think his filmmaking is good. The look is good, even though it doesn't really work. Carmine's music is good, but it just doesn't fit for for some of the tone of the scenes. But look, it's very mixed in my opinion, and it's a little overrated. All right, so let's talk about a movie I actually do like. So Rumblefish was made right after The Outsiders, and that's because Coppola just really actually loved this story that S. Hinton also wrote, and he really identified this movie a lot with his brother August, because the whole point of Rumblefish is that it's a movie about two brothers, and so he was definitely like really attached to that aspect. Kathleen Roll did not come back to write this one. This one, however, this was written by Coppola himself and S.E. Hinton. They would actually write this movie on Sundays, on days off from The Outsiders. So while they were filming Outsiders on their day off, they would just write this movie, and they made this movie right away after, because this came out the same year. Coppola got kind of the same people that worked on Outsiders. He got cinematographer Stephen H. Brown back. He got Matt Dillon, who's now promoted to the main star of the film as Rusty James. Diane Lane is back as the kind of the love interest, kinda. Tom Waits is also back, more of a cameo in The Outsiders. In this, he is more of a supporting character. Sofia Coppola as well also has more of a supporting character role. William Smith, who again had a smaller role in The Outsiders, is in this as a cop, and then you have Glenn Withrow, who also comes back. So the new people in this, you've got Vincent Spano, who hasn't really done much. Mickey Rourke, who everyone kind of knows is from Iron Man 2. is also in this with a who, you know, I said before he auditioned for the first Outsiders, but he's in this. And then you got Nicolas Cage, who is obviously, you know, related to Coppola, and this was like one of his very early films. And the same year he did this, he was also in Valley Girl. You also have Chris Penn the year before he did Reservoir Dogs. And then you have Lawrence Fishburne, back when he was pronounced Larry Fishburne. And lastly, you have Dennis Hopper as the father character. And both Dennis Hopper and Lawrence Fishburne would work with Coppola on Apocalypse Now. So there's that connection. So Warner Brothers had no like interest though in like making this film, just because they didn't like how The Outsiders turned out. Even though that movie made $33 million off of its $10 million budget, so it did kind of well. But yeah, this movie is actually still made for the same amount of money at $10 million, but did not do as well. And we'll get back to that later. But so when you watch these two together, you can realize Outsiders is a little more has a more mainstream feel to it. Like it's more accessible. Outsiders is more accessible to like a mainstream audience. Rumblefish isn't really. It's very, very artistic for a movie like this. That's again, it's about like gangs. But it's very weird. So because Coppola, he wanted people to watch like a lot of like black and white films, like and Anatol Litvak's Decision Before Dawn, which I think had like a lot of the inspiration for the film Smoky Look. F.W. Murnau's Last Laugh was to show like Matt Damon how to act, you know, like in a silent movie. Also, there was like some like inspiration from the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which was like the stylistic prototype. This is like a very like this movie was just very weird, but I actually really love this movie, and I'm gonna go as far as to say this might be my favorite Coppola movie that's not Godfather and, you know, Part 1 and 2. Like, those are his best movies, and this is, like, the honorable, like, third film, I think, that is just, like, his best. I think the acting in this is just way better. Well, I still don't really like Matt Dillon. I don't think he's great in both movies. But I think the acting in this is still really good, especially from Mickey Rourke, who's really good as, like, you know, you kind of believe him as this, like, guy who, you know, he doesn't have a good hearing, and he's, you know, so he's a very, like, low talker, and he really sells it. Diane Lane, I will admit, I do kind of like her in The Outsiders, and she's good in this, so she's good in both movies. Lawrence Fishburne, he isn't in it that much, but he actually is kind of fun. Tom Waits is really good. Chris Penn's kind of fun. Nick Cage is also kind of fun in this movie. The acting overall, besides Matt Dillon, I think is all really good, and also Dennis Hopper. He's also not in it that much, but Dennis Hopper is amazing in it. And I just love how weird Coppola, like, it's weird, but it feels realistic and gritty enough where, you know, it doesn't detach yourself from it. Because this movie is still pretty dark. But at the same time, it's more like the dark and toughness makes it more sad, because, like, the whole point of the movie is just this kid Rusty James, who wants to be more like his brother, and also, like, bring the days of his brother back when he, like, ruled the streets as, like, a, you know, when it comes, you know, as, like, street gangs. He wants to bring that back, but, like, he doesn't realize that that's not what people want. And it's overall, it's like, it's an interesting coming of age story that, you know, is really just like, I like this better just because of the more of the brotherhood between Rusty James and Motorcycle Boy, unlike, you know, in The Outsiders with Pony Boy and, like, and Derry. So there's that's kind of like why. And I think it's just a good combination of just, like, you know, being weird and just tough at the same time. I love this movie. It's just it's one of my favorite Coppola movies. And I think, and if you really like The Outsiders so much, I would definitely recommend Rumblefish, because I love this movie. I do actually like the book too. It's really good. Just character study on these two brothers, and I think great book, great movie. One of the few examples, but at the same time, I have not read that many books. But yeah, overall, recommend Rumblefish. One of the best Coppola movies. Thank you very much, guys, though, for watching this video, and we'll continue to do more Coppola films. I got a few ideas of Coppola films I want to talk about. Leading up to Megalopolis. You'll see my thoughts. So look out for that, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.